Well, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Daniano?
Here.
Mr. Rubin?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here. Thank you. Council, do you have the legal notice?
I do. Public notice is hereby given that there has been introduced before the Town Board of the Town of Patterson, New York, on July 14th, 2021, Local Introductory Law Number 3 of the year 2021, which law will request, consistent with the authority granted to municipalities under the New York Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, the Cannabis Law, that the Cannabis Control Board, duly formed and constituted pursuant to and in accordance with said law, prohibit the issuance of licenses for and otherwise prohibit the establishment and operation of retail cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption facilities within the town's jurisdiction. Now, therefore, pursuant to Section 20 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, the Town Board of the Town of Patterson, New York, will hold a public hearing on the aforesaid local law at the town offices, 1142 Route 311, Patterson, New York, on August 25th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. in the evening of that day or as soon thereafter as may be held, at which time all persons interested therein shall be heard. The town board will make every effort to assure that the hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance and/or reasonable accommodation should contact the town clerk.
Thank you. I would ask at this time if there is anybody here in the audience that wishes to address this issue to the town board, if you would approach the mic and please provide your name and address and make your comments.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Garrow. I live in Fox Run.
A little closer to the mic, please.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is Amanda Garrow. I live in Fox Run. I am the secretary of the Putnam County Libertarians. This issue should not be thought of solely as access to cannabis because users can go elsewhere to obtain it. It is actually about the potential growth of local small business. Allowing dispensaries and/or lounges brings money into the community via sales and tax revenue, but it also adds jobs. From what I've read, other counties say they want to opt out simply because there is a future option to opt back in. But the problem with that is that there is only a finite amount of licenses in New York. Since our neighboring towns opted out, if the dispensaries are here, people from this town and other towns will spend their money here, shop here, and hire people from here. Not only is there money from the town revenue going toward,
It's all right. Take your time.
Not only is there money from the town revenue going towards schools, but also toward programs to help counteract drug abuse. There will also be funding set aside to combat marijuana impaired driving, including training to the local police to recognize drug use for roadside testing. A good course of action to see how this has been enforced in other communities would be to go to the dispensaries in Massachusetts, take a tour of it, but also speak to the local law enforcement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, anyone?
My name is Christopher Joseph. I reside at 889 Route 311. Just take a couple minutes to read a statement I wrote. I stand before the town board as not just a resident of the town, but also as the chair of the Putnam County Libertarian Party. As I look upon this issue, my primary concern is not, I don't have a need to consume cannabis, but just the idea of, just overall the concerns of the freedom to engage in activity. My concern arises from the fact that while the state is going to sit there and say this product is legal and to possess and consume, sorry, I'm not used to doing this, but sale will remain outside our control, and basically black market is going to. Okay, can I?
Take a deep breath. How you been?
I'm good. I just don't do public speaking.
No,
So-
most of us don't. We all get dragged into it.
Okay, so my main concern, I'm just going to read it right off here. My concern arises from the county's decision could leave us in a sort of state where consumption is legal, but the state sales remain outside regulation and control of yourself or I. Before a decision is made today, I'd like to hear from the other residents of the town and the town board of the reason why you're leaning towards opting out, and hopefully convince you to flip your vote. Sorry.
Hopefully that
Take-
didn't go on there.
Go ahead.
It's fine.
To begin with, I'd like to address what I think will be some of the concerns I expect to hear tonight from the board. One of the issues that I personally have is the law itself. I think that, particularly in aspects of the sales tax, I think with it being so high, it will incentivize the black market to continue. And also the other issue I have with the law is that the oversight committee that the state wants to put in place will get in the way of ourselves being able to regulate this issue. But outside the fact, as flawless, sorry.
Take your time.
As flawed as this law is, I still think it's a good step in the right direction for the state. Because at the end of the day, it's allowing for more freedoms for myself and other town members. One of the other issues that I can expect to hear is, okay. Sorry, I'm nervous as hell.
You should be sitting up here.
Okay, perhaps you don't think there's anything wrong with the law, but you just object to cannabis on just a personal feelings, at which point I would suggest putting those feelings to the side. Mainly because the decision tonight is not based on cannabis. It's just, allowing someone to open up a dispensary. Now, while there are concerns over public safety, I've heard from other town boards in terms of, fears of people consuming cannabis and going behind the wheel of a car and it being harder to detect. While those are valid concerns, consumption will still be legal, and therefore people will still be able to use and get behind the wheel of a car. You're going to have to address those safety concerns regardless of the vote tonight. So I don't know if I could sit there and think that is a reasonable objection to opting in. One of the other issues that I'm expecting to hear is that due to a lack of regulation, how the state is saying we are going to allow this, and it's going to be up to you to decide the rules and regulations in place. So while I understand that, let me reword this, sorry. Thinking that it might be better for someone to come up with a solution and waiting for them to come up with I understand the mentality of wanting to wait for someone else to come up with a solution and to address these concerns. At the same time, I think it's sorry. Okay. While I understand that this mentality, I wholeheartedly object to the validity of it, because isn't that the whole point of these town board meetings in the first place? To recognize upcoming issues and come up with a way to handle those issues. I believe kicking down this decision to the future and to other leaders is is a misstep and just an unacceptable course of action. Instead, what I would propose is to look at it, ask the question: is it truly a negative that they didn't provide any guidelines? I prefer to look at it as a blank slate for the town and the residents to come up with the rules ourselves. And because while I fear that while somebody else could come up with a potential solution, they're not going to be taking our town's perspective and our unique needs in mind when they do that. I believe, honestly, I'm willing to work together with the town board and offer the support of the rest of the Putnam County Libertarian Party and invite everybody else who's part of the town to work together and then coming up with those rules that work best for everyone. And then finally, I think the last issue, well, not really an issue, but the last objection I expect to hear is that maybe there just isn't a demand for cannabis, so why should we vote on this? To which I counter, if there really isn't a demand, then what is the harm of opting in? Just because you allow me to open up a dispensary doesn't mean tomorrow I'm going to open up one. The free market is going to decide if I just open up the store here or not. If there is no demand, I'm not going to open up a store. However, if there is demand and you opt in, I can open up my store here, which like it was already stated earlier, has the potential for increased tax revenue and other businesses to come into the town of Patterson. Now, on the flip side of that, if you choose to remain opt out, again, if there was no demand, I was never going to open up a store here anyway. However, if you opt out and there is a demand, I feel like you're getting in the way of my ability to open up a store, you're directly in the way of people who want the product. Not only that, they'll still they'll go get the product. They'll go to the black market, they'll buy it and consume it anyway. So potentially you're losing out on all that extra money. So when I look at all the options, I may not have worded them the best way, but when I look at them everything, I think the best future you have is opting in. I'm sure I could have done this better, and I appreciate your time all the same.
Did fine.
Good points.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Sorry, I'm a little shorter than the others. Good evening. My name is Kristen McConnell. I reside in Patterson, and I'm also the director at the Prevention Council of Putnam. I just wanted to thank the town board for making this issue and bringing it to light, and thank the Supervisor Williams for inviting me to speak. So I have some remarks I prepared. So just so everybody understands the issue tonight, where the board is going to make a decision whether to allow dispensaries to sell recreational marijuana and allow places for on-site consumption and lounges in the town. So if you do not vote to opt out by December 31st, you'll never be able to opt out in the future. And if you vote to opt out before December 31st, you can always decide to opt in later, as somebody else already stated. There are provisions of the New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act that became law in March. So a new cannabis control board, similar to the alcohol beverage control board that we're already aware of in New York State, will be making decisions on what marijuana products can be sold, the pricing of products, if children will be able to accompany adults into dispensaries, what kind of advertising will be allowed, and every other aspect of marijuana sales and on-site consumption. Local governments will only be able to determine hours of operation, zoning issues, noise limits, and number of people that can occupy a dispensary or lounge. Since the new Cannabis Control Board is not yet operational and the regulations have only begun to be discussed, it's prudent that the town really consider opting out until more is known. Opting out will give you more time to consider the regulations established by the Cannabis Control Board and then decide the possible impact of dispensaries and lounges on the community. I also have some research findings with citations that I'll submit after I state them about some concerns around dispensaries. So 13 to 17-year-old youth living close to dispensaries and exposed to marijuana advertising were more likely to report their intention of marijuana use. Young adults living within a 4-mile radius of a dispensary are more likely to use marijuana, more likely to use heavily, and experience problems related to their use. Home prices within a 0.36 mile area of a new dispensary fall 3 to 4% on average relative to control areas. And then also I have some other information. While states that have retail marijuana dispensaries have higher rates of marijuana impaired driving, hospitalizations for marijuana poisoning, and hospitalizations for marijuana dependence, it's unclear how close the proximity of dispensary actually impacts their consequences. So to be fair, I have both sides of the argument. And a community's decision to opt out really sends a message that a community does not endorse getting high for fun, and patience and additional data are needed to, as opposed to experimenting with their families. So I'll just end by saying that I'm also a parent of a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. They attend Matthew Patterson. I've lived here almost my entire life. I'm very vested in the community, and I think that having dispensaries in our town could definitely increase health and safety concerns and impaired driving concerns. And unfortunately, even with additional training, law enforcement are really not equipped to deal with this issue. So thank you for your time and consideration, and I can get this to you and if you'd like. Or
That would be great.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Town clerk.
Thank you.
Is anybody else here in the audience?
Hi, I'm Stacy Dumont. I live on Bullet Hole Road in Patterson. I have more of a question about the process, this process. And when I was looking up the meeting time and all the information about the meeting, the agenda had a link to the law. And I read the law, and the law was dated that it would be effective today. And today is also the public hearing. So I would like to know the actual process, and that's more of my question. So it seems as if this law was written, as if it was effective today, regardless of what this public hearing was going to entail and the comments made and whatever you might have received otherwise. So if you can clarify the process on why and I'm not sure if a public hearing and a law are always written this way, but that's really what my question is. And is a public hearing after the law has already been written a formality? So if you can clarify that process, I would appreciate that. And I would also like to know what you based your decision on when you came to this conclusion. And I would also like if you would post the reference that you have provided, because I'd like to read that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will address the first question. We typically do not, we do not do this back and forth, but so anytime I draft a local law, I fill in all the blanks. That doesn't mean it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to pass. It is not always passed that same day. Sometimes we do need to hold it off, but that's just the author's way of filling in all the blanks and getting it ready for the town clerk should we take an action on it tonight. It is on the agenda tonight, so we may actually vote on it tonight, but it is not a foregone conclusion ever.
Bob Dumont, Bullet Hole Road, Patterson. And again, I'm glad to hear it's not a foregone conclusion. That was certainly one of my concerns. But also of my concerns really is opportunity. And opting out sends the signal that basically we're closing down. And while there might be time to opt back in, people make decisions based on reality. If you're a town that opts out, why do I want to go through the hassle? You see that with every business proposal that comes in, right? Why do I want to be in Patterson if the red flag says there's other place that's a little more friendly to do business and a little more, apt to support my business? Dispensaries are basically, it's becoming the wave. It's popping around. It's legal in Massachusetts, Connecticut. It's unavoidable. So leaning toward the opt-out, really all that does is say the surrounding areas are more suited to bringing in business. So I would hope to hear that as you vote, to maybe give us a little insight into why you voted that way, what your concerns were. And if you want to state them now, pro or con, I would certainly like to hear them. But an up or down, yes or no vote would certainly let us know how you feel about the issue. And that's really what's important to me. Personally, I would like to see this happen. I think it's pro-small business. I think it's pro-growth. I think it's pro-tax growth in an era where we certainly need a bigger tax base. And it sends the right signals that Patterson is available to the small business community. So I hope you will consider making a comment or two as you vote tonight. Thanks.
Does anyone else sitting here in the room wish to make any comments or address the board?
Just want to say, Bob, we also have your letter as part of the record that was sent in your email, rather. That's part of the record as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Donnelly. I live at 15 Old North Road in Amenia, northeastern Dutchess County, where mine is the honor to chair the Dutchess County Libertarian Party. And I come to today just to say that, although I've never met you, I know that you are surrounded by people who consume cannabis, because they are educators, artists, artisans, mechanics, clergy, and law enforcement. And you may be unaware of their consumption because they are just as productive as any other person. So the idea that if Patterson were to opt in, you'd get a zombie apocalypse is not quite the case. I appreciate your concern about opting in prior to a regulatory framework, but mind you, this is New York State. We regulate everything which moves. So by the time of the rollout, there will be the regulations to manage this safely. So my advice to you is just to consider that delay is denial. If you decide to not to opt in now with the idea of opting in later, the market will be cornered by surrounding jurisdictions. So just please consider that you can still have a vibrant, business-friendly community even if you go through with opting in today. By the time of the rollout, there will be the regulations, it will be managed safely. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else here tonight? All right, hearing none, I will turn to our audience joining us by Zoom. Does anybody who is joining by Zoom wish to have any comments, wish to address the board? If you would please unmute and state your name and address for the record. Does anyone have any comments?
Tell Bruce to talk, he's on. You guys gotta tell him, it's Bruce, he's trying to talk, but you just tell him again.
Bruce, you have to unmute.
I did unmute.
There you
Good
go.
evening, this is Bruce Major, 166 Somerset Drive, Patterson. I trust you received my two reports that I submitted to you in reference to this particular issue. I trust that you received them.
We have.
Yes, we did.
Okay, fine. You will see my concerns. My concerns are based on an evaluation of what's happened out in Colorado. Clearly, the regulations haven't been written to suggest that we can trust the state of New York to come up with good regulations. I ask you to look at the no bail regulations that are currently in the state of New York that has driven crime through the roof. It is smart to wait to see what these regulations are. It is also wise to look at, in those reports, the effect it has on children under the age of 18. And I would hope that you folks will consider holding out until sometime in the future. Additionally, I too have concerns, and I've raised this at least 2 or 3 times over the last 4 years. My concern when a bill is written or a law is written and you have a public hearing and then there is a vote later in the evening, it sends a message to the public that maybe we're not so concerned as to what you have to say. I would hope that this board will take all the material that has been provided to them and put off the vote until the next town board meeting, at which time at least you'll give the appearance that you took the time to understand everything that the people have said this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else joining us by Zoom have any comments they wish to address to the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, to adjourn. Let's go home. Close the public hearing.
So moved.
Oh, wait, before we do that, I did forget one thing. We received a letter today at the door from somebody who wished to attend. Unfortunately, he didn't register and asked that this be read into the minutes. This is from Stephen Tosoldowski, 885 East Branch Road, concerning local law number 3. Dear Supervisor Williams and honorable board members, I have been a resident and landowner in Patterson for over 34 years, and I would like to voice my opposition to the above referenced bill prohibiting cannabis stores and consumption facilities. First of all, I found a report from New York State Department of Health entitled Marijuana Legalization Impact Assessment PDF, ny.gov, that was useful when considering this issue. According to this report, marijuana is easily accessible to the unregulated market. A 2017 Marist poll showed that 52% of Americans 18 years of age or older have tried marijuana at some point in their lives, and 44% of these individuals currently use it. Estimates from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health indicate that 1 in 10 New Yorkers used marijuana in the last month. The status quo, i.e. criminalization of marijuana, has not curbed marijuana use and has in fact led to the unintended consequences, such as the disproportionate criminalization and incarceration of certain racial and ethnic groups that has a negative impact on families and communities. I have no reason to believe that Patterson residents are any different from New Yorkers polled in this study, and so I conclude that there must be a lot of Patterson residents that use it. The stigma of admitting to this use is what I believe keeps many proponents of cannabis from speaking up about this matter. Please do not vote to prohibit retail or consumption facilities in Patterson for the following reasons. 1, prohibition would impose an inconvenience on these consumers by having to drive elsewhere to purchase these products. 2, the town would lose out on a lot of revenue generated by these types of facilities. The sales tax of the product would be tens of millions of dollars annually, and a good percent of the taxes on them would go directly to the town. I read an article recently that cities many favorable aspects that a town in Massachusetts benefited from. Most importantly, they realized over $3 million in taxes and impact fees in a town of 7,000 people with only a $13 million budget. 3, if the town allows these facilities, it would also bring consumers here from other towns. These visitors would likely also patronize other businesses in Patterson while they are here, improving businesses in town in general. Other local towns have banned the facilities, but why not take advantage of this fact by being one town that does allow it? 4, if these facilities are allowed, the Cannabis Control Board that was constituted by the town, as well as the current planning and zoning boards, can craft in the details on how to best regulate and benefit from such facilities. There may be even a desire or not to create use zones, places where it is okay to use the products and not infringe on non-users' preferences. 5, the previous mentioned report from the New York State Health Department also concludes that access to cannabis actually reduces opiate use in the community by giving people a better option. We should take any and all steps to fight the war on opiate addiction. 6, I have personally observed operations at dispensaries in Massachusetts, and I can report that they seem to be professional, orderly places. The patrons appear to be from all walks of life, young, middle-aged, and even older people. Everyone waiting online seemed happy and relaxed due to the large amounts of money being transacted there. The businesses have their own security people, but that didn't even seem necessary as everyone was peaceful. I would be proud to say that cannabis is available for purchase in Patterson, and I feel that it would not degrade the positive image of our town. In fact, I feel that it would add to the uniqueness or coolness factor perception of our town. Respectfully submitted, Stephen Tosoldowski.
I also wanted to read, if I will, if I could, we received a letter from our legislator that represents Patterson, Ginny Nasserino. She couldn't make it here tonight, so I'd like to read a letter that she submitted. Dear Supervisor Williams, Deputy Supervisor Cook, Councilman D'Andriano, Councilman Rogan, and Councilwoman Smith. It is my understanding that Patterson Town Board will consider opting out the sale of recreational marijuana pursuant to the New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act at its meeting on Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. This is an important discussion, definitely one I would like to have been present for. Unfortunately, there are 2 legislative committee meetings at the same night that I must attend. On July 13th, 2021, the attached letter was sent to you, and we have an attached letter from the, which committee was that? From the Legislative Health Committee. I'm not going to read that. It's pretty much a lot with Mrs.
McConnell?
Mrs. McConnell, sorry. Mrs. McConnell, pretty much what she said. Although the decision to opt out is out of local municipalities, the Health Committee was compelled to discuss this vital topic and provide their input to all local towns and villages in Putnam County. The New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act has the potential to significantly impact the town of Patterson moving forward. I implore each member of the town board to support opting out at this time. This will afford the town the opportunity to follow the trajectory of this act in the state and make a more informed decision once additional information becomes available. Thank you for your careful consideration of this important matter. Sincerely, Ginny Nasserino.
Anything else at this time? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Would somebody like to audit the bills?
I'll make a motion to approve abstract number 15, dated August 13, 2021, in the amount of $120,662.13. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Budget
Somebody like
transfers.
to do? Yes, I'm getting there. Would somebody like to do budget transfers?
Okay, we have budget transfer request number 20 to allocate additional funds for the park personal services swim lessons account. So we'll be moving $80 from the park contractual expense account to the park personal services swim lessons expense account. And we have budget transfer request number 21, request to allocate additional funds for the dental and optical employee benefit for increased costs. So we'll be moving $700 from the employee benefit hospital and medical insurance and $100 from the employee benefit hospital medical insurance, and to employee benefit dental and optical, 700, employee benefit dental and optical, 100 expense account. So I'll make a motion that the town board approve budget request number 20 and 21, so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes, so I have in front of me a letter from a town of Phillipstown board member asking us
Sorry, Mary,
to.
can you take that mic a little closer?
Sure.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay. I have a letter in front of me from Jason Engel from the Town of Phillipstown Board asking us to entertain a discussion for Putnam County to share their annual sales tax growth with the local municipalities. Currently, right now, we don't really have a lot of information on the, or data on sharing the sales tax growth with the local communities. So we most certainly would like to entertain a conversation and a discussion with the local supervisors in our neighboring towns. We have budget season coming up in September. I know that we have some supervisors that their term are ending, so it probably doesn't really seem wise to get into discussion now, so maybe we could revisit this in January and table it for now and set up to get together with the local supervisors and discuss and see what the opportunities are for us. Okay? Discussion? Agree?
Any other comments?
Well, I agree. I think there's a few unanswered questions, and what we've been provided is also 8-year-old data in some cases. We don't know if we were to accept the sales tax revenue, what does that entail relative to keeping the town whole on taxes, what additional workload that is on folks, and also where the county pays for community college course. If we were to be taking that on, what kind of a workload is that in controlling what goes on? So I think definitely we just have to wait and let the supervisors talk with the county executive and get some up-to-date answers.
Well, I think the big issue here is we've got 4 out of 6 supervisors in Putnam County leaving as of January 1st. We're going to have 4 brand-new supervisors coming in. And I'm sure I've been through 2 discussions with the county on sharing of sales tax before. Both of them are very complicated topics, considering that the county does provide a lot of services in exchange for the sales tax. So I think it would behoove everybody to, again, I'm not one that's ever going to turn down money if the county wants to, offer, sharing of sales tax. But I think I would like to see the other supervisors, take office and then have a meeting with County Executive Odell to further explore this topic maybe one more time. So I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, Peter.
Okay, first item I have is the cannabis opt out. So we did hear a lot of good points and arguments. I respected a lot of what was said. I think we can go back and forth here and talk about the health and safety aspects of cannabis and what impacts on the town. But I think as far as the opt out, what we're trying to do here, I think that someone said that opting out, delaying if we don't opt out now, if we opt out now and then we had an opportunity to opt in the future, someone said, well, delaying is denial. I think delaying is responsible. If you look at the law, the cannabis, the cannabis regulation committee really isn't even established yet. The rules aren't established yet. We don't even know what to expect. And I really liked your recommendations on how, well, the rules aren't established yet, so maybe we can work with them and make up some of the rules and work together. But I don't think that's the way it works. I think they're gonna make, it's a statewide commission, cannabis commission, and they're gonna make up the rules and they're gonna tell us what we can and cannot do. So I'm not comfortable of opting into something that I don't know what even the ramifications are, even what the rules are gonna be, or what we need to do, what we can't do. So I think it's responsible if we opt out. If we don't opt out at all, if we don't do anything, we're gonna just automatically opt in December, and then we're kind of stuck with it. It could go good, it could go bad, but we really don't have an option at that time. If we opt out now, we can look and see it. Maybe it will work out in other communities. Maybe it is a good revenue draw in other communities. But I'd like to see that first before we decide to opt in. So we always have that option. So does any other town board member have anything else to say? Or?
I think we all probably do. Yeah. Rich, you want to go or?
So
thank you for all the comment. And I want to say that over the last couple of months, I've been poring over the information, trying to look at credible sources for information, things like the CDC, the American, and I never get the acronym right, the American Medical Association, and different credible sources like that for information, trying to look at what the impacts are from a public health standpoint. I have no doubt that this could be a fiscal benefit to the town if we were to opt to having dispensaries. For me, I go back to a couple of issues that keep coming back from the research that's been done with Colorado that has had a couple of years of experience on this. And I go back to things like how this is impacting our children and our teenage population. It seems to be pretty clear that the use of marijuana increases once it's become legal, even though it's not legal for that age demographic. This leads, of course, to things that people, I think we all would agree we wouldn't want, like edibles being eaten by children, things being mistaken. I think we all would agree that that's not something that is, anybody would be in favor of. This seems to be leading to an increase in not only calls to poison control, but visits to the emergency room for pediatric ingestion of edibles, acute intoxication, and other health-related issues that are very serious. Somebody mentioned I think you did, the increase in motor vehicle, not only the difficulties with impairment, but the increase in motor vehicle accidents, but also the fatalities associated not just with children, but of course with adults as well, driving while impaired, which Pete, I know with your law enforcement background, you probably understand better than any of us the difficulties that law enforcement has with detecting and being able to deal with those situations. I also saw a lot of reference to the increased burdens on the mental illness and mental health associations and how that would impact on our community. Increases in anxiety and depression and unfortunately suicide rates associated in Colorado with the legalization of marijuana. Now, I know we're not here to decide on the legalization. That's been decided for us, but we certainly have discussion and impact on availability within our community. We also heard, and in watching what some of the other towns contemplated when they had their public hearings and their discussion, we saw our local police agencies come out and oppose or support opting out. I think that's the most accurate way of saying it, because of the concerns that the local police agencies have with enforcement and with control. And lastly, I want to say that I think it's important to have some solidarity with our adjoining towns, with the town of Southeast, Kent, Carmel, and as I understand, Putt Valley, who have already opted out. That, as someone said, it can create an opportunity, but I think it also stands that we should be supportive of our surrounding neighbors and look at this as a community approach. And so for all of those reasons, respectful of everyone's opinions that was expressed tonight, but I'm supporting opting out for all of those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to. So the great thing about this board is that we all just come from such different, sides of, our careers and our backgrounds, and like Sean said, this has been something that we're not discussing together, but that has been a topic out there for at least over a year and has run through my mind, and I've thought about for a very long time. And I looked at it and still look at it through the eyes of a young girl, a mother, a grandmother, a professional supervisor that supervises CDL drivers that transport children. And where would we go with drug testing, and how would we know? But more importantly, for me, it's that I feel as though, and I stand by Pete and I just are up for re-election, and in our campaign, we spoke about the future of this town, the children are the future of this town. And I think that we're obligated to provide them with a safe environment. And when you say a safe environment, if you look at the word safe, what is the definition of the word safe? Without risk. So if we opt in, we're taking a risk. We don't know what's coming down the road. we can put this off. We spoke about, we always have the opportunity to opt in, so why would we want to opt in now when we don't know what is coming to us and we don't know what the risks are? So we do have an obligation to provide the children a safe environment and the maximum opportunity to succeed in life. So I support opting out.
I don't think there's much else to say. My colleagues have expressed themselves very eloquently. A big thing that troubles me, and I'll just read a couple of sentences from this oft-quoted Putnam County legislator's letter, and this is the one that's from the Health, Social, Education, and Environmental Committee. And basically, and this is a big thing, the new Cannabis Control Board is not yet operational, and its regulations have not even begun to be discussed. And they're asking us to consider regulation established by the Cannabis Control Board, and then decide the possible impact of dispensaries and lounges in the community. I think that it's prudent for us to opt out because there's so many unanswered questions. There's a lot of information, and most of it that we've seen talks about the lack of positives about this. I know some people have quoted, well, you know, in these other states, well, we've also read articles where in these other states there's been a high incident of accidents, as Sean pointed out, where marijuana was detected, even in fatalities. So I don't think it makes sense to go with this at this point.
So I, like Sean, have spent many months now since this was first proposed by the state legislature, looking for credible sources about, you know, how this would impact our community and will it impact our community. And I could say, for me, the jury's still out. I don't know if this is going to impact our community. I don't know. Christopher, I agree with a lot of what you said. Starting with, this is the second worst law I have ever read coming out of the state legislature in the last 2 years. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see the accessory dwellings law, which was really, really incredible. But this law, by far, is written horribly. It has many provisions within it that conflict. There's clear language in it that says, you know, towns are still going to be able to regulate what they do. And then language right after that that says the Cannabis Control Board is the only authority that's going to be able to regulate, you know, the consumption and the retail sales in a community. They're going to set the standards. We right now don't know what the state is going to do. The one thing I can tell you is the state legislature has clearly shown a desire to eliminate home rule from local communities. They constantly are taking away our authority and eroding our ability to determine what our community is going to look like. They wrote a law that basically says you can opt out now and you can opt back in later if you think it's a good thing for your community. But if you don't opt out now, you can't opt out later. You're stuck with whatever we're going to hand you as far as rules and regulations, as far as control over you know, what your community is going to look like. And I think that is probably the worst thing they could have done in that local law, because they are forcing municipalities across the state to opt out until such time as they've made all their rules and regulations and they have their Cannabis Control Board. And until we see what that looks like and what the rules and regulations are, we would be remiss in our responsibility to protecting this community by not opting out. So, with that,
So I come to this, I've been looking at this issue for a long time now. I've been a police officer for 20 years at the Greenberg Police Department. I've been in law enforcement for almost 30 years as a corrections officer and other entities with the police department. Now I'm also a New York State driver safety instructor, and I taught for a couple of years. I am an impaired driver instructor. So when people get a DWI in Putnam County, they used to have to come to my 7-week class and learn about the dangers of drugs and alcohol and driving. I currently sit on, I'm the secretary for the New York State Association of Traffic Safety Boards. That's the entity that oversees all traffic safety boards within New York State. I'm the secretary for the Putnam County Traffic Safety Board, and I'm the Regional 9 coordinator for the New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Committee Child Passenger Safety Board. So I think I bring a lot of experience with traffic safety and law enforcement to the subject, because out of a lot of conferences I've attended for the last couple of years, this was a big issue. So I've talked to, I went to a conference a couple of years ago, a traffic safety conference in Albany, where they had a high-ranking official from the Colorado State Police, and this was before New York State passed the cannabis law, and she was begging us to beg your legislators not to pass this. She told us what was going on in Colorado, a lot of what Bruce Majors sent us in that report that was going on. But more recently, that's why I missed the last meeting, because I had to attend the New York State Association of Traffic Safety Boards, and we had a guest speaker who was the deputy inspector for the Suffolk County Police Department, and he's the commanding officer for the Suffolk County Highway Patrol, which is the second largest county highway patrol in the state besides New York City. And he gave a presentation that was given at the Mid-Hudson Association of Chiefs of Police conference as well. So I sent everybody a copy of the presentation. And in that presentation, it really wasn't, the moral aspects of cannabis and smoking and stuff like that. It was the concerns of law enforcement and the concerns of this law, like Rich just stated. This law has a lot of holes in it. It really needs to be redrafted, relooked at, and I think that's only going to happen after time, when things aren't working out, when they're trying to prosecute things and there's lawsuits and things like that, and then the law will probably be fine-tuned. And that's another reason why I wouldn't want to jump to opting in at this time until that law is fine-tuned a little bit more. As far as revenue, I'm not ready to give up the health and safety of this town for 3% revenue at this time, and we don't even know what that is and what we're actually going to get. And that 3% we're getting, how much are we burdened with, with
traffic safety,
traffic safety,
law enforcement,
therapy, and programs and stuff like that. Also, they talked about, they actually created a law, the cannabis law. It's a whole new law, and it conflicts a lot with the health laws and the penal law. It restricts police officers more. So, as a police officer, if I rolled up on a car, I walked up on a traffic stop, and someone rolled down the window, and a strong smell of what appeared to be marijuana, I would have probable cause to search the vehicle for drugs. An officer doesn't have that ability right now. Also, with going back to my experience with teaching impaired driving and offensive driving, driving while ability impaired drugs is a lot different than alcohol. It's apples and oranges. I know if I drink a 12-ounce beer, or a 5-ounce glass of wine, or a 1.5-ounce glass of 80-proof alcohol, that's one drink. I know if I drink one drink, it brings my blood alcohol content to 2%, and I know if I have 4 drinks, it brings it to 8%, which is impaired. Okay, we don't know how much marijuana, how much cannabis it takes to be impaired, to consume to be impaired. It's ingested in many ways. Alcohol is, you drink it, it goes into your stomach, and some of it gets digested in your stomach, some goes into your bloodstream, some continues. Marijuana is inhaled, there's edibles, there's all different, so that goes in your stomach, it goes into into your lungs, depends on how you consume it. I can consume the exact same amount of cannabis as Mary, and it would affect us two different ways. So as a police officer, it's really difficult to know if somebody is impaired to drive. And we also know that every hour, a guy my size, what am I, like 150, 250?
Sure.
A man my size, every hour I would dispose of one of those drinks. Okay, so we know that every hour or so you dispose of the alcohol out of your system. But with cannabis, marijuana, we don't know. It could stay in your system a long time. I know if I have a couple beers at lunch, and then I have to work at 4 o'clock, I know if I had a lunch at 12, by 4 o'clock, I know the alcohol's out of my system. If I consume marijuana at 12 o'clock, is that marijuana still in my body? Am I impaired to go to work? We don't really know. Officers aren't trained. There's very few officers. They're specially trained DREs, drug recognition experts. I think it's an intense 2 weeks of training to be a DRE. Not every police department can send every police officer away for 2 weeks to get this training. I don't know how many. I think in Putnam County, I think we might have 2. I'm not really sure. Is it two DREs in the whole county? So that means every time a police officer pulls over someone and they suspect them for being under the influence of marijuana or a drug, they would have to call that officer. And 2 officers, they could be off, they could be away on vacation. So it's very difficult. It's not like alcohol, where it's easier to, a lot of officers are trained in knowing if someone's impaired by alcohol, but to recognize a driver being impaired by drugs is very difficult. So those are my concerns. Also, too, with the law, there's all kinds of stuff like underage possession, and first of all, they don't even have tickets made out or any kind of citations made out to give a citation if someone's violating these cannabis violations. And a lot of them are civil.
God's sakes, there's civil penalties.
There's civil penalties.
And if you're caught smoking marijuana, it's a $25 fine.
Underage consumption, it's a $50 fine, and no one even knows how it's regulated or who enforces that fine. So there's a lot of holes in the law. So not only do we not know what the Cannabis Commission is going to come up with,
Cannabis Control Board.
We also don't know. There's also a lot of unknowns in the law itself, and that's what this high-ranking officer and the chiefs of police in the Mid-Hudson Valley were very concerned about. So I want to wait. I would like to wait and see how it plays out, how the law plays out, if other communities opt in, how it works in those communities before. So I'd be in favor of opting out. So I think everyone said their piece, right? So with that said, I'd like to introduce a resolution of that would the intent of Local Law 3 of 2021, opting out from the issuance of retail dispensaries, licenses, and on-site consumption licenses. So this would opt out of allowing cannabis retail dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption sites in the town of Patterson. So I'd like to enter this resolution into the record as read. So moved.
Second.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Adriano?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes, you're so soft-spoken.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Williams?
Yes.
Next, I have a resolution for a tax cert for the National Auto Sprinklers and Fire Control Association. For the year 2021, the original assessment was $2 million. The reduced assessment is $1,500,000, so the reduction would be $500,000. So I'd like to enter this resolution into the record as read. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Charles?
Okay, next we have a leave of absence request from one of our EMS employees, Jeff Priscilla, sorry, for a 2-month a leave of absence from August 16th to October 16th, unpaid, and it's endorsed by his supervisor, Bobby Kearns. So I will make a motion that the town board approve this request. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Next, we have appointment of new person to the EMS department.
Good luck with that one, Charlie.
Pete always gives me these names.
Charlie, you interviewed him.
James D. Pietriantonio. Close?
Close enough.
I'd say that's about right.
And I apologize to Mr. James. Appointing him as a EMT at a rate of $15 per hour. So I'll make a motion the town board approve this resolution and that it be entered into the record as read. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. All set, Charles?
That's it.
Okay, next item we have is an opportunity that was brought to the town from a resident who owns a piece of commercial property. It's directly behind Tractor Supply, a 40.76 acre commercially zoned piece of property that they are looking to donate to the town of Patterson. So I know some of us we've walked the site in the past on planning board days, Charlie and I, and it's an opportunity to get a donation that we can keep in commercial development. And procedurally, I was thinking not only I wanted to call it an evaluation, but it's an appraisal. Not only authorizing an appraisal, Rich, but do we need to make a motion to move forward with authorizing the
So
supervisor?
there's three things I think we need to do.
All right.
One is we need to, and I believe, do you have the letter I
I
gave
do.
you? Okay.
Mhm.
So approve the letter of intent to accept the donation with the conditions contained therein.
Okay.
Second thing is to approve the one appraisal for Peter Foucher. And then we need to authorize the town attorney to do a title report.
Okay, and that's contained also in the letter. So, in this instance, and this is 3013 Route 22, and again, it's the property directly behind Tractor Supply. I'll make a motion that we authorize the town supervisor to send the letter to the property owner indicating our intent to accept the donation, subject to a favorable title report and review and approval of the contract to sale, and authorized him moving forward with preparation of all the necessary documents for the acceptance of the property. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And secondly, I'd like to authorize or make a motion to approve the quote for the appraisal of the property for an amount of $750 to Peter Foucher. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And lastly, make a motion to authorize the town attorney to prepare the title report. So moved.
Second.
Well, to obtain a title.
Obtain. I'm sorry, obtain.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Alrighty.
Okay.
The next item, good night. The next item is a request for a zoning change, and this is a piece of property that is on Route 22 that is currently run as a motorcycle retail sales, Wilkinson's Motorsports. And the request comes from an individual who would like to propose putting a private dog kennel on site. The zoning is commercial for the site, so this would require a change in zoning. It does not comport with, of course, our master plan, and that's why they're requesting a zoning change. So it really comes down to whether this would be potentially a appropriate use given the restrictions of property size, the layout of the site, and potential impact to neighboring properties. And you know, I did do a little bit of research looking at it's Putnam Service Dogs. And I looked at their website. They have a beautiful website. They discuss doing a significant fundraising event for a large training facility, much bigger than what's on this site, so that might be a longer range plan presumably. But their plan is for a facility that would house up to 144 dogs and have outdoor and indoor facilities. And just, not that that's the proposal before us, the proposal is a smaller, starting off with housing up to a dozen dogs with the kennels and supporting, what do you call it, like having an on-site a caretaker, if you will, for off hours. But I'd like to open it for discussion by the town board to see if we think this is something that should be supported for a zoning change.
No?
Anybody have any thoughts on why it should or should not be supported?
Well, I mean, certainly with the dog kennel, you have, impacts for noise, and, I think that there could be sites that might be better suited for the amount of impact that would be created by this sort of use.
It's a commercial corridor, and that's how it should be kept.
So, many years ago, we had a very lengthy discussion and debate about dog kennels within the town of Patterson. We had a very large kennel that was being proposed, and at that time, the residents of this town said that they really did not want to see large kennels within the town. And it was taken out of the zoning code. That was way back then. Certainly, it doesn't really comport with the vision within the master plan, as Sean mentioned. I've got some real concerns with this, that they're coming in and they're saying it's going to be 12 dogs, but really their goal is a huge facility. And that's not something that I would think would be beneficial to our town. Not only that, they are looking to have a facility with a caretaker in it. Now, this is a commercial piece of property. There is no residence there that we're aware of that's legal, that would be pre-existing non-conforming. So, we would have to then, if we were gonna move forward with this, we would have to talk about a mixed-use scenario, which is something we generally don't do. So I don't think, this is the site for them. I don't think this works for them. When you're talking about having living quarters on the same property as having your dog kennels, and I am concerned about the noise aspect of having kennels out there. So.
I have concerns as well. Just like you said, residential and mixing residential and commercial and making those changes. But my more concern is, it sounds like, starting out with 12 dogs and then probably just to get the zone changed, to get their foot in the door, and then they'll expand, and then that could become more of a nuisance and more of a, so I wouldn't be in favor of that.
I agree, as much as I'm an animal lover.
I love dogs, so.
Yeah, I think that it's a great foundation, and they have a great mission there, but I don't think that we're the location for that to, develop.
Counselor, what's your recommendation on how we proceed? Do we introduce a motion to ask you to prepare a zoning amendment and vote it up or down, or?
I think that they should have submitted a formal petition on this, but we certainly can put something together. Another thing to consider, maybe not for this site, but in general, if there is a more inclination to allow kennels in certain places but not here, if you'd want to do it by special permit or conditional use for other, maybe this isn't the location for it, but it might be something to consider in other locations. I do think that they should have submitted a formal petition requesting the zoning change.
So they submitted this at my direction. What more formal petition would you have liked to have seen?
Just a notarized petition requesting a zoning change. But at the same time, it is signed by the recipient, and they did provide the fee. But I do believe the board has to take a vote on it and we can do it, we can at least put together, at minimum, a resolution.
Well, I think you were missing the point. I don't think anybody is really in favor of this. It's just how do we word a motion so that we let her know officially that we're not in favor of it? And what I was suggesting is we just do a motion to have you prepare, a local law and then vote it down.
Yes, I think that would be the way to do it.
We have to have a public hearing on it, right?
No. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the town attorney to prepare a local law to amend the zoning for this site. So moved.
Second.
Want to do a roll call?
So I'm.
Do you want me to start? No. All in favor?
Wait a minute, can't it be just a motion?
No, so it's just procedural is what you're saying. It's-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, right.
I need to be able to respond to this individual who
Makes
has
sense.
requested a zoning change, whether the board would consider a zoning change.
Understood.
We can go through the whole process, have a public hearing, do a local law, advertise, or I can simply, as I did, I made a motion that was seconded
I understand, yeah.
to request the town attorney to prepare a local law to amend it.
So if
And
the vote
we
is
don't,
no, it's.
then I can go
done.
back to her and say, listen, the town board took a vote on your
Understood.
request and rejected it.
So a no vote is a no on the request.
Correct.
Right.
So I seconded. You want to do a roll call?
All in favor?
No,
Aye.
No.
no.
Really?
No, all in favor of
No.
not changing it, and
No,
not
no.
accepting the application.
No, you're missing it.
So you're voting for the town attorney to go prepare a local law so that we can move this request forward?
No.
No.
So
Okay.
then your vote is a no. That's all. It's just a peculiar way that we're doing it, but I understand.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why I asked the
Yeah,
attorney, what's the best way to do this?
right. All right, so I'm voting no.
I know traditionally the attorneys do not like to see motions made by somebody who then votes against that motion.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know how else to do this.
That's right, yeah. Well, for purposes of getting it to a vote, you put it, that's, I guess, so that the full board has the ability
To vote.
to vote, so. All right.
All right, we're all set? I think, moving on? All right, so we've got a request from our highway superintendent, who's also the administrator of our sanitation district, to purchase a new vehicle. We do have money in the budget. I've been talking with our controller about whether we should bond this or use the money in the budget, because the rates are so low, the money we're getting is incredible. She thinks that at this point, we should just pay for it. It wouldn't be available for quite some time. It usually takes a year to 18 months to get these trucks built. The situation is we have a recycling truck that is starting to have problems, nearing the end of its useful life, and we need to talk about replacing that. The conversation that Mr. Goff and I have been having is that we replace it with a packer rather than the style truck that we have now, for a couple of reasons. One is you can get more recycling in it as you're packing it, We're doing that now, but we're picking it up loose and then having to take it over to the compactor. The second issue is that, if one of the packer trucks goes down, we can then use this truck to go pick up garbage. We just need to clean it really good before we then go pick up recycling. So there's a lot of advantages to, buying a packer to pick up recycling. I realize that may raise some eyebrows and concerns, so we're in agreement that we're gonna have in very big letters on both sides of the truck, recycling.
Yeah.
So
Good idea.
everybody knows.
Russ also told me that also has the ability, since you're packing it, he could drive it right to the recycling center and just dump the whole compacted.
Right.
And it also, I think he said it has steering wheels on each side, right, Mary? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Well, no, we're having the steering wheels put in, yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes
So
it safer
safer.
because the driver's not getting out onto the traffic side and coming around the vehicle. They're coming out on the other side. around to the vehicle to load the recyclables.
Yep. We talked about a number of different features. The one, he is taking it off of this bid at this time. I wanted to see him put a lift on the back, like we put on the other trucks.
Mhm.
He's assured me that it makes more sense to, just buy the lift and have them put it in. It's gonna be a cheaper
Oh, yeah.
cost, but it was like $7,500 for them to put it in while we're building the truck.
Mhm.
I don't know how much more we're gonna save on that. Anyway, I'd like to make a motion to authorize our sanitation supervisor to purchase a new international packer for amount not to exceed $195,000. So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Where did you get
That's the actual total when you add in the packer, the truck, and the modifications to put the steering wheel on the side, which is about
okay.
10,000.
Because all we have is 87 plus.
I got a calculator.
Okay. Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Now, we have the money, or we're gonna bond this one?
We're still working out those details. We have money.
Okay.
We have money in fund balance, and we have money in, we have
Yeah.
money in fund balance. The second item on my agenda is really just for discussion. I'm not looking for any action on this tonight, but we do, and we've been talking about this, we need to get going on the EMS building. The good news that I will relay to the board tonight is I was able to break the log jam with DASNY, and we have modified now the agreement, so we are talking about just we have a $100,000 grant that has been held up for 5 years now, because they want to know the actual construction costs, which we can't give them until we put it out to bid. So anyway, we're modifying the grant application now, so it's just for the acquisition of the property. That also opens the door for potentially another grant for the actual construction of the building. The downside in this is they want yet now a third estimate, or a third appraisal. So I have to give them a third appraisal on this, which is just eating it by craw, but, anyway, I just wanted to bring this up for discussion. I haven't had a chance to go through this with Renia. I had asked him for an estimate for doing a site plan out there, and he actually has given us, a proposal which comes up to between $68,000 and $75,000 to do all the design work and getting everything ready right up to where we need bid documents. So, does anybody have any questions on this?
So as you can imagine, I'm very excited about this.
I bet.
My only comment would be, and I'm sure, so our interim EMS administrator, hopefully he'd be a big part of working with Rennie. I know, I looked through this and I saw a lot of the consultation is very expensive, but I would hope that maybe either they, one time before they make designs, just to get his input, like a wish list, or not even a wish list, what is needed from his EMTs. Maybe he can canvass his EMTs and just let them feel like they have some input too in it. I just hope that we did
So
that.
absolutely, we're gonna include everybody. We're gonna include the town board when we're talking about doing the design. We're not just gonna go out there, get a plan, go get it approved, and go build it without talking to anybody. No, we're gonna be inclusive on this for sure.
So what are we looking with Rennie right now?
Nothing. I just wanted to bring it up, make sure you had it, answer any questions that I could answer right now that you may have on it. And we will bring it up at a later date after I've met with Mr. Rennie to kind of tweak it a little bit. Maybe next meeting to approve him to go ahead.
Okay.
Great.
I was gonna suggest I bring it back next meeting.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay. That brings us to other business. Does any board member have any other business they wish to bring up at this time? Hearing none, I do. We have a memo here from our EMS administrator. we have now had our ambulance in service for many, many years. There are a number of little things that are wrong with it. I'd like to say there are a number of little things wrong with it, plus it's due for its major service and overhaul, doing the coolants, oil change, changing out all the gear oils, new brakes, tires. So we have an estimate from the people who have supplied us with the ambulance specialty fleet services. You all have it?
Yes.
Yes.
We really need to get going on this because right now this ambulance is out of service, so we're down to one ambulance. Anything happens. I was not happy with the hurricane coming in with just one ambulance sitting there. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the estimates from Specialty Fleet Services for the repair of the ambulance 36-7-2 in the amount of $11,000. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any other business?
And just as while we're on EMS, the EMS committee will be meeting next week.
Very good.
So we've been meeting more often and giving Bobby some guidance, and he's picking our brains, and we're all working together.
Okay, good.
I just want to remind everyone that Wednesday, September 1st, school's open, so you'll see there's no more remote learning in any of the school districts, so you're going to see those kids out there waiting at bus stops, so just to caution everyone.
Okay. Public recognition. Does any member of the audience who is with us tonight wish to make any comments or address any issue with the board? I would ask again that you step up to the mic, provide your name and address, and make your comments.
Christopher Joseph, 889 Route 311. I just wanted to say thank you for the time, listening to the various town members, especially with me fumbling through what I had to say. So I do appreciate that. The only thing I would ask is, with the option to opt out at the moment, you've brought up numerous times that we could have a future conversation and decide maybe to opt in the future. I'd like to still continue to have conversations with the town board members, maybe not necessarily in these meetings, but maybe individually, so I can kind of go over some of the concerns I've heard tonight, because I didn't know about them before tonight. So I'm going to address any of those, especially in terms of safety. I don't want to be in an unsafe town myself.
Sure.
And so obviously, I want to work with the town board however I can and addressing those issues.
Sure.
So, like I said, again, thank you for your time.
So,
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
let's do this before you walk away. Listen, I'm here 5 days a week, way too much. You can always call my office if you want to come in and talk to me, or we can set up a time. If you want to talk to any individual town board members, we can coordinate that for you and get you in touch. Whatever you'd like to do to further the conversations. And anytime, you see it, we have public recognition, every meeting. You can always come back anytime you want and say, listen, the rules are out there. We think this is a good time to revisit this, and we'll have that conversation.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anybody joining us by Zoom who wishes to make any comments or address the board on any issue?
Oh, nobody's unmuted.
All right, hearing no further comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all for coming.